By faith. I got to tell you, over the last couple of years, God has put men in my life that come and said, I feel like I have this calling to preach. And so God has laid on my heart to try and give those guys opportunity. Mike Dickey is one of those guys, and Chuck is one of those guys. And so I'm very thankful that he's saying yes to God, walking by faith as he steps into this, because it's a big deal. And he's probably feeling all that right now.
The song said overwhelming. That's
yeah, overwhelming. Yeah. But we are looking forward to hearing what Ruth chapter 3 has for us this morning through you, bro. So there you go.
Thank you. Well, good morning. Overwhelming and reckless. That's what the song said, and that's what you get with me, because normally I'm hiding in the corner, not up in the front of the room. So I got up, nervous, still nervous, not gonna lie. Walked out the door and was hit with cold. I was not expecting, because it was 80 degrees last week. But that's Indiana, and that's how that works. The other thing you run into in Indiana in the fall is the farm equipment. The farmers are out there harvesting, and that's kind of what we're looking at in Ruth, is that harvest going on. I always get behind those big ones with the big wheels, and I wonder if I can drive under it. I don't know if anybody else has that thought. It was more prevalent when I was driving a Yaris, but now that I'm driving a truck, it doesn't really cross my mind so much. I really appreciate the farmers, though, because I'm not good at growing things at all. I got a basil plant from Meyer the other day, and I think it lasted 3 days. So I'm pretty good at killing plants. If you need a plant gone, I can probably kill it for you pretty quick. But I got a video, just a quick video, somebody else that's better at plants than me, I guess. Kind of go over all that, but just a quick video to kind of calm my nerves and get everybody thinking.
Walking through Jackie Flournoy's garden
It's real pretty.
is a lesson in history
My daddy always called it a blooming pear bush.
and in humor.
They knock you out roses.
Knock you out?
Uh-huh.
The knowledge blooms freely here.
I just put it out and let it go.
The wonder
Yep, it'll be a surprise.
is in the waiting.
Well, I guess it's like waiting for Christmas. You just have to sit back and wait and see what you get.
And she's been waiting a long time for this.
Ooh, a lot of things have changed over the years.
Since 1987, to be exact.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Ronald Reagan was president. Nintendo was king. Eggs cost 97 cents.
It's unusual.
And Jackie Flournoy was planting seeds for the future. For 36 years, the cactus just sat in Jackie's front yard. But when she looked out her window in May,
Just all of a sudden, it just shot up.
25 feet in the air.
It's so tall. It's like you gotta crane your head back to look.
Yep, you gotta lean your head back.
The stalk stands tall over Luthersville, Georgia.
And everybody says, well, that's a landmark, you know.
The whole city now watching
There was a lady out there with a camera.
and waiting for the flower.
I love the beauty of it. It being unique, different. It's just a mystery all around.
The agave americana, or century plant,
Don't get stuck.
only blooms once in its lifespan,
Nature is a mystery.
between 25 and 45 years after it's planted. It is rare
More like a desert plant.
and safeguarded in the places it typically blooms.
They say Mexico, Southern California, South America, but they never mention Georgia.
The buds will eventually give way to bold yellow blossoms.
It looks like at the top it's gonna have a huge bloom.
Now that the stalks shot up,
They're amazed at it.
she's on standby.
It's at a slow point right now. I'm just waiting.
She knows the wonder is in the waiting now,
I've enjoyed it all these years.
because everyone blooms in their own time.
I guess it's like part of the family or whatever.
Walking through Jackie Flournoy's garden
So she's better. She's better than 3 days. 36 years. The part that you don't see there is the awesomeness. You see the awesomeness of it, but you don't see the sadness of it. Is the reason it shot up 25 feet so quick is because it's dying, right? It shot up. It's going to bloom. Those blooms are going to fall and make way for new plants. So in 36 years, there'll be more. It kind of ties in with what we've been going over in Ruth with Naomi and her newfound faith. So the title of the message today is Bringing Love to Life, and we start that with sowing faith. I'm going to pray for a second just to ask for help. Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity. That overwhelming is real, and I don't feel like I'm worthy to be up here doing this, but I'm going to do it the best I can. I just ask that when I inevitably say the stupid thing I'm going to say, that everybody will hear something different, because you have that ability. So just help us get something. In Jesus' name, amen. So you got Naomi moving in from the second chapter into the third chapter where we're at now. And her faith was kind of beat down and broken in the first part of Ruth. I mean, she's gone through losses. She's gone through husband dying, children dying, bad times. And we had a friend we used to go to church with, and she would always, her thing was faith it till you make it. Everybody always says fake it till you make it. Hers was faith it till you make it. It's because we're not faking it. I mean, it's as Christians, we don't want to fake it. We want to have faith that what's going on is what needs to go on, whether good or bad. And so we move into that planting faith, and we see Naomi doing that. Into chapter 3, her faith, just like that cactus, shot up, right? Went crazy. Faith shot up overnight. Everybody sees it, and now she's trying to show Ruth. She's trying to make way, same way that plant was. She's trying to make way for Ruth and share her faith with Ruth. In these first 5 verses, you kind of see that. It says, then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, my daughter, should I not seek rest for you, that it may be well with you? Is not Boaz our relative, with whose young women you were? See, he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. Wash therefore, and anoint yourself, and put on your cloak, and go down to the threshing floor. But do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. But when he lies down, observe the place he lies. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down, and he will tell you what to do. And she replied, all that you say, I will do. And so you see, Naomi's faith here it just sounds like she's telling her how to get a man, right? But the faith lies in the reasons why. The reason why she's telling her to do these things. To understand that, you have to understand what she means by relative in this first bit. And by relative, in that time, it meant redeemer. Boaz is their kinsman redeemer, which doesn't make a lot of sense in our time because it's a whole different thing. It's a whole different society back then. But what a redeemer was, and it was back in Leviticus when most people stop reading their, I'm going to read all the way through the Bible thing. They hit Leviticus and give up because it's part of all of just the rules, the laws that he's set forth. And so the first thing a redeemer can do is buy someone out of slavery. In Leviticus 25:48, that's what it says. It's if you get over your head financially and you have to basically sell yourself as an indentured servant to someone else to pay off that debt, your Redeemer can come in and buy you back. So you're no longer in debt. The other one, one of the other ones is the Avenger of Blood, which I think sounds the coolest. That's in Numbers 35. And that is, it's if you go and get yourself murdered, which I don't recommend, but if you do, then your Redeemer is the one that goes and finds justice for you. They bring your murderers to justice. They also have the ability to buy back land. So again, if you get financially sideways and you sell Grandpa's farm, they're the ones that come buy it back, keep it in the family. It's all about family and land back then. Those are the important things. You hear in the Bible about the tribes, you know, all the different tribes and all their meanings and all this stuff. But the land and the family was important. So if you sold land to another tribe, everything's kind of out of balance then. And so that's the point. The one we kind of get into here is the carrying on of the family name, which is in Deuteronomy 25. It goes into the New Testament. There's a part where they're talking to Jesus and they say, you know, if a man dies and his brother marries her and then he dies and marries her, who's the husband in heaven, right? It's that principle. So if you get married and you don't have kids and your husband dies, well then his brother is the one that marries you, then is obligated really to marry you to provide offspring for the family, to carry on the family name. In Leviticus 25, later on, it kind of goes over the sequence of people that's for. So you have your brother, and if the brother's gone, then the uncle, then if the uncle's gone, it's cousin. After the cousin is just closest family, whoever's closest. And so Naomi is telling Ruth to go through this process, the process of marrying the kinsman redeemer to get their land back, to get their family back. You see Naomi have a renewed faith in God's plan behind it. You know, you see God's, when you have the opportunity to see God's plan in action, that's when that shoot grows, right? That's when you got the mustard seed of faith back in Matthew. You know, it's the mustard seed of faith, you know, you'll say to the mountain, move, and the mountain will move. And that's mustard seed. Man, lost my place, sorry. But it's that principle of finding God's plan and moving with it, saying yes to it, as hard as that is sometimes. But she's telling her to go out, you know, wash yourself, anoint yourself, put on your cloak. And those sound like go get yourself pretty and find a man, right? But that's not what it is. What it is Ruth has been in mourning. She's been in mourning and she's been working the fields to provide for her and Naomi. Naomi's telling her to go put on normal clothes, take your mourning clothes, do away with them, and be available for this opportunity. You know, she would have been wearing mourning clothes. She would have been presenting herself as someone in mourning, and she'd been working in the fields. So go wash the manure off yourself and get ready for the opportunity. And then you can tell Naomi's a smart lady. She says, wait till he's fed, right? Wait till he's well fed and had a couple of drinks and go talk to him, right? Because the way to a man's heart is through his stomach, and she's smart. And then they get some weird advice of uncovering his feet. And if you look online, you will find a lot of interesting thoughts on that. A lot of people say that that's a euphemism for something a little less innocent. I don't believe it is. I've read through some commentaries and everything, and there's back and forth between it. But what it seems to be is she's telling her to go uncover his feet. In the simple term, it's just uncover his feet. And the reason is she wants his attention. She wants to go and find him and get his attention. So she uncovers his feet so he'll wake up. Because any kid will tell you, if your feet are uncovered, the monster can get you. That's how that works. The monster under the bed can get you if your feet are uncovered, and so keep your feet covered. And that's what he's doing. His feet get cold, so he wakes up shivering, realizes there's a lady. That's the next part, but that's what they're looking for, is a conversation, a way to make yourself available. Lay down at his feet. We all hear that. We hear that through, lay it at Jesus' feet. It's an act of submission. It's an act of humbleness. It's letting him know that you're available for him. And so you see Ruth's faith grow at the end of that, where, Ruth is new to all this, and Nahum was telling her all this weird stuff to do. And so it might sound kind of crazy, but Ruth's response isn't, I know how to get a man. Ruth's response isn't, I can do it, I know how to do this. Ruth says, everything you said, I'm going to do that. It shows her faith growing as well. What's a little bit harder to see in here, just reading through, is that God had a plan in all this. And again, the nerd in me looks at Leviticus a little bit different than most people. That's God's plan. That's the reasons he gave laws and rules and this sort of thing were to push people where he needed them. So you have in Leviticus 23 there's a list of different festivals and feasts. Just earlier this month was the Feast of Tabernacles. In our time, that's the Jewish folks would have celebrated that. That's where you build a temporary shelter and live in it for a week. I have some friends that are into some bushcraft and that sort of thing, and they actually do this every year. They celebrate it. Not because they have to, but because it's written and they want to see what will happen if they follow. The reason that's important is because after the Feast of Tabernacles is when the barley's planted. And so in Ruth, we're at a barley harvest. That brings us to the next plan that God's got here, and that's a feast that you would understand. As Christians, you probably have heard about it before. It's Passover. Passover begins the barley harvest. So when you look at it in that context, they're in a time of famine, and God's Passover provided the people of Israel with food. So it's a way for him to just put his fingerprints. This isn't just a random act. This isn't the harvest came in because we got the right rains. He put his fingerprint on it saying, this was me. I did this. After the Passover is the first fruits, which would have been the bread and wine they were having in chapter 2. And after that is the Feast of Weeks. And that's where it's written in Leviticus 22:23. It makes sense. It says, when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap to the field right up to its edge, nor shall you gather the gleanings of your harvest. You shall leave them for the poor and the sojourner, for I am the Lord your God. And that's right here. This is why Ruth and Naomi are there, because they know God's plan. They understand that if there's a harvest in Bethlehem and you show up, the farmers ain't going all the way to the edge of the field. There's going to be food there for you. So God had a plan hundreds of years before Ruth and Naomi ever showed up. And so that first part, you can get a lot from it. There's a lot there. I won't dig way into it, but Sunday nights at 6 o'clock, we dig in a little bit. That's our small group, so shameless self-plug there. But in this, like I said, Naomi's been beat down. Life's kind of kicked her butt. But she's still showing the new generations how to do it. She's still sharing her faith, which I think gets lost. People get bummed out, they get burdened, they get overwhelmed, they get burnt out, and they don't want to do anything, so they just don't. And then that just leads to more burnout and overwhelmness because you don't have a next generation that is doing this stuff too, that is sharing all this faith with everybody else. This is what we're for. But we see it in Naomi, we see it in Ruth. And then after their faithfulness, after seeing the faith of them, we get verses 6 through 13 is growing hope. That's my next point. So it says, she went down, talking about Ruth. So she went down to the threshing floor and did just as her mother-in-law had commanded her. And when Boaz had eaten and drunk, and his heart was merry, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain. And she came softly and uncovered his feet and lay down. At midnight, the man was startled and turned over, and behold, a woman lay at his feet. He said, "Who are you?" And she answered, "I am Ruth, your servant. Spread your wings over your servant, for you are a redeemer." And he said, "May you be blessed by the Lord, my daughter. You have made this last kindness greater than your first, in that you have not gone after young men, whether poor or rich. And now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do for you all that you ask. For all my fellow townsmen know that you are a worthy woman. And now it is true that I am a redeemer, yet there is a redeemer nearer than I. Remain tonight, and in the morning, if he will redeem you, then good, let him do it. But if he is not willing to redeem you, then as the Lord lives, I will redeem you. Lie down until morning." And so this goes into my reasons why I don't think this is any kind of euphemism. She's just laying at his feet, looking for a conversation. It says he's startled. There's a lady there. You go to cover your feet back up, and there's a lady there. You're going to ask questions. That's where she's at. And so now, we're looking at the hope of things. We're looking at Naomi. Naomi has a hope now because it's all on Ruth. So anybody that's ever sent a kid out to school or to a job or driving or whatever knows this hope that she has, because she's not going to be there. All that she has is the hope that Ruth is going to do what she asked. Just like your kids, you send them to school. You're going to hope they act right. You send them out driving. You're going to hope they follow the rules. All of this, it's what she's going through. And I just found this kind of fitting, especially in Naomi's place, is in Job, of all places. It says, "For there is hope for a tree, if it be cut down, that it will sprout again, and that its shoots will not cease. Though its root grow old in the earth, and the stump die in the soil, yet at the scent of water it will bud and put out branches like a young plant." If there's a better image for Naomi, I don't know where it's at. But that's kind of, until the end of the chapter, that's all we hear about Naomi. So she's just hoping that Ruth follows through. And Ruth's got hope. Ruth's got hope a lot in this chapter. What you wouldn't, again, kind of what you don't really see just reading it through. But to understand it, you got to know what a threshing floor looks like, which I think I have an image of a threshing floor. So it's just a big circle with rocks. It's flat. There's not a lot going on. This is where they would crush down the grain. You'd put the grain in there, you'd crush it down with a tribulum. I think I have a picture of that too. So this thing would be hauled behind a horse or a mule or whatever, and it basically grinds the seeds out of the plant. So this is where they're at the threshing floor. This is what they're doing. They've already done this part, and he's winnowing, which means basically you're using wind to separate the seeds and the plant matter. Because if you're making beef and barley soup, you don't want the plant in there. You want the seeds in there. That's how that works. But that's where they're at. And I totally forgot what I was talking about. But to understand that place is, back then it would have been a shared resource, right? You're not going to have 20 threshing floors. You're going to have one that's shared amongst all the farmers, all the town anyway. And so when it talks about finding him, when it talks about paying attention to where he lays down, it's because there's going to be more men than just him there. It's going to be a community event. It's going to be a celebration of the harvest. They're all going to be there doing it. And so her showing up, dressed nice, smelling good, in the middle of the night, in a place where there's a bunch of men, in the time of Judges, is dangerous. She has hope that she's going to have protection. She's praying for protection. She's looking for that. If you weren't here for the Judges chapter 20 concubine thing, it won't be as obvious, but the concubine didn't make it because the men were not worthy. And she's hoping that the men are. She's hoping she finds the right one. She's hoping Boaz is the worthy man. She's looking for a godly man. And I don't know why I didn't see it, but as I was going over all of this with Wendy and Kayla pointed out that this is all very similar to where we're at now in society. Back then, it was weird for Ruth to look for a godly man. It was weird for Boaz to look for a godly woman. Because in the time of Judges, they were just looking for fun. They were looking for a good time. They were doing right in their own eyes. And so Kayla brought it up. This is where we're at in society. Nobody's looking for godly men and women anymore. They're looking for a good time. They're looking for somebody that's going to take care of their pleasures, not their spirit. And that's where we're at now. That's where they were then. She's looking for that spiritual covering from Boaz. That's where she's talking about that's where she's talking about the cover, cover your servant with your wings. That's a Psalm 36:7 is how precious is your steadfast love, O God. The children of mankind take refuge in the shadow of your wings. That's what she's looking for. She's looking for that refuge. She's seeking that love from him. She's hoping it's there. She's hoping for a better life for her and Naomi. She's hoping for the family that she didn't get from Mahlon. She's hoping that her and Naomi don't have to be homeless and gleaning the fields for the rest of their life. Boaz has hope too. He hopes that his feet's going to get warm. He hopes that this other redeemer is going to say no. And it doesn't specifically say that, but you can kind of glean it because he's done the calculation, right? He knew that there was another redeemer closer than him. He's processed that. Ruth has already been living in his head. He's hoping for her. He's hoping that she's going to, or that the other redeemer's going to say no, that so he can be the one to redeem her. He's also hoping for the family because kind of goes into the next chapter, but the other redeemer talks about his family and how it'll affect him if he does the redeeming. So Boaz doesn't have a family either that's spoken of. So he's hoping the same thing for that family. And I mean, you can kind of put yourself in those places. You can kind of, anybody that's lost family, that doesn't have family, that wants family, knows that hope. Ruth wandering around in the dark trying to make sure she knows where she's going. I think everybody feels like they're walking around in the dark most of the time, just hoping that we can find our way, hoping that God shows us the way. And then we get into the last little bit. It's the harvesting love. which sounds kind of cheesy, and I apologize for that because I don't try to be the cheesy guy. But 14 through 18, you kind of see the love grow, right? It's so she lay down at his feet until morning, but arose before one could recognize another. And he said, let it not be known that the woman came to the threshing floor. He said, bring your garment you are wearing and hold it out. And she held it out, and he measured 6 measures of barley and put it on her. Then she went into the city. When she came to her mother-in-law, she said, how did you fare, my daughter? And she told her that what the man had done for her, saying, these 6 measures of barley he gave to me, for he said, you must not go back empty-handed to your mother-in-law. She replied, wait, my daughter, until you learn how the matter turns out. For the man will not rest but will settle the matter today. And so what we've got here is it paid off, right? It's the payoff. It's the Ruth has done all of her prepping and getting pretty and all that and made herself available. And now Boaz has reciprocated that. He is also willing and available. And so they're both aware that each other feels the same way, right? It's the he likes me thing from grade school. It plays out Lindsay said the Romans 8:28 is how all things God works for the good for those that love him and who have been called according to his purpose. And I don't think you could pick 2 people that have been through more bad in our eyes, right? I mean, Naomi's husband died and her kids died, which put them homeless. Ruth's father-in-law, brother-in-law, and husband died, and she's homeless. And her sister-in-law just took off, didn't want to be with them. So they had all of this bad. Now they're homeless, cleaning the fields, having to do all this stuff. We wouldn't consider that good. But to see how it plays out and how it works out, we see the good. Ruth is one of the only 5 women named in Jesus' genealogy. I mean, that says something. There's a lot of men in there. There's a whole lot of men in there. But she's one of the only women that show up because of her faithfulness, because of what she's done. And so we see Boaz's love already starting. We see this going on. It's the bring your garment and I'll give you some barley. And I can only imagine she's just now changed out of her morning clothes and put on her nice clothes, and he's wanting to fill it up with some grain, which I don't know if any women would feel good about that, filling her dress up with just grains to carry home. But he's doing that to protect her. I mean, she spent the night at the threshing floor. I mean, it's not going to look good for everybody else to see her going home from the threshing from the threshing floor in the middle of the night. They're going to think things. They're going to assume things because the time they were living in, it would be right for them to assume it. So he's protecting her. He's protecting her from the start. He's sending her off with assurance. So Naomi can see what he gave and know that that's where he's at. That's his mindset is, I'm going to do this. One of the big parts, again, jumping back into the festivals of God, right? It's that last verse where it says, he's not going to rest, but he'll settle the matter today. To us, that sounds like he's just excited. But what that actually is the last part of the festivals that God put in place. We know that one too, as Christians, it's Pentecost. Right? That comes 50 days after the Passover. And that's where we would have been here. Pentecost is the last of the harvest. So the reason that he's going to finish it today is because tomorrow is Pentecost. It's a holiday. They're not going to be working. And so this spiritual covering that Ruth wanted way back in the day was on Pentecost. what she's going to get from Boaz is happening on Pentecost, the same way it happened to the disciples in the New Testament thousands of years later. It's the same thing. God is there. God is using all of this to let us know that he's there, to let us know that this plan all the way through isn't just coincidence, but it's his plan. And so anybody that thinks love in the Bible, they think 1 Corinthians, even people that aren't Christians know the 1 Corinthians 13. Love is patient, love is kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It's not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices with truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. And then you can see this. You can see this with Ruth. You can see this with Boaz. You can see this with Naomi. It would have been real easy for Naomi to be envious because now you've got Ruth is the one that's going to carry on the family name, not Naomi. You can see in Ruth, she's not going to insist on her own way. She's doing it Naomi's way. She's listening. She's following what she's been told. She's doing the right stuff. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in truth. And that kind of goes back to that uncovering his feet thing. You know, they're not looking to be doing the wrongdoings. They're looking to do it the right way so that they can live a blessed life. So we got the sowing faith and the growing love, or growing hope and harvesting love. Psalm 33 kind of points to all of that. 33:20 through 22 says, "Our soul waits for the Lord. He is our help and our shield. For our heart is glad in him because we trust in his holy name. Let your steadfast love, O Lord, be upon us, even as we hope in you." And I think that's kind of an overarching way that we should look at it. It's what we should hope for. We should look for in our relationships, in our daily stuff. And the band probably can come back up. I'm almost there. So I mean, the real takeaway is sometimes we're Naomi, right? Sometimes we're Naomi and we've been beat down, kicked down. The foot's been left on us to let us know that the world's going to beat us down, and that's how we go through life. And anybody that tells you that being a Christian is going to be easier than that is lying to you. It's going to be hard the same way, but we have faith, we have hope that makes it a little bit different than everybody else's. Our hope comes from God, not from the world. So as the world's beating us down, we can still have hope. Sometimes we're Ruth, and we need somebody else to share that faith. We need somebody to show us the way. And that's where the church comes in. That's where us as a church, we need to be more diligent in. Hebrews 10, starting at 23, says, "Let us hold fast to the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who has promised is faithful. And let us consider how to stir up one another in love and good works, not neglecting to meet together as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near." Now, what day is that? And that's the day of judgment, right? And even non-Christian people will sit there and tell you all the stuff that's going on in the world looks like the Bible being played out in real time. And you have to ask, why in the world would you say that and not believe? Right? Why would you look at it and say, the world is living out the biblical prophecies, but I still don't believe it. I think it's just junk. Why would you do that? But meeting together, that's the point. That's why we do church. The church isn't so that Chuck can get up here and be nervous and ramble on forever. Church is so we can get together, we can have a good time, but we can also teach other people. I can show you the boring Leviticus stuff if you're so inclined to see it. But that's what the church is for. I appreciate online church, but I don't think it's the same. Sitting in your living room and trying to do church just doesn't feel right. But what we have to understand is we got the waymaker, right? God made the way. God made the way for Ruth and Naomi. Through the Passover, he started the harvest. Through the days of weeks, he did the gleaning. There was hope there. There was faith in the Passover. And there was love. There was love in the Pentecost. He covered them with his love then. Same thing happened 1,100 years later, somewhere around there, with Jesus, right? His faithfulness on the cross. That was Passover. The days of weeks, he rose from the tomb, which gave everybody hope. And Pentecost brought us the Spirit, brought the disciples the Spirit. He covered us in his love on Pentecost. It's the same thing over and over again. He made a way. And if you don't believe that, then I really want to help you with that. And if you question it, if you do believe it and you question whether or not that's true, then you need to talk to us. Talk to me, talk to Greg, talk to most of the men in this church, most of the women in this church. We'll help you any way we can because it's important. Because we are in those days. We are in those final days. And everybody can see it, even non-believers can see it. So try to get right, and we'll help you do that. Again, if anybody in here needs to talk about it, me and Greg definitely be available. Just pray over your week. Heavenly Father, thank you. Just thank you for everything you do. Thank you for giving us those signs that we may or may not see. Help us pay attention so that we do see them. Help us to share our faith with others. Help us to guide the people that need guided. And help us to be guided when we need it. Just watch over us this week. Keep us safe out in the world because it's going to try to kick us down. Just make it through to the next Sunday and everybody get here. And in Jesus' name, amen.